Okay, so this is the third recording and the second question for Charles Comer. I'm Matty Minotti. This is Charles Comer. This is, what was it called?
Philosopher on Carmel.
Philosopher
It's a
on
blog.
Carmel.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I did my only the most popular entry that I did was actually on other people doing social media stuff.
Okay,
on
there we go.
iPods. So I don't know who knows.
Okay,
It's getting very abstract.
So this is my question. Hopefully, this will be a lot more historical and less philosophical.
Okay.
Hopefully,
I'll do my best.
So, the traditional theme within conservative political philosophy is that ideas of consequences. And as such, there seems to have been, uh, and there's a lot of disagreement on this, some idea in the past where we seem to have gone astray. Where we were headed on the right path, and then at some point, something changed within the intellectual milieu, and we ended up now with a kind of a libertine, nihilistic society. My question to you is, do you think that this statement or proposition is true? And if you do, where have we gone astray?
Yeah, that's a very rich question. One way to answer it would be to go way back to the modernist turn, and I think even in one of our other sessions, you mentioned Descartes, right? And I think in some respect, that modern turn that really gets its biggest or greatest expression in the Cartesian turn, where our basically the subject is in a large measure responsible for the creation of the world, as opposed to the world informing the subject, right? The world including even certain transcendental ideals like truth, beauty, and goodness, going back to one of the other discussions that we had. But here it turns the other way. And what do you see? The Enlightenment is one of the strongest expressions of that turn. And then in contemporary postmodern thinking, it's reached a fever pitch, almost its most, in some ways, absurd conclusion. Now the question is, okay, could it have been retained? Could it have gone another direction outside of the possibility, or outside of maybe what we're seeing now? I think it's safe to say that folks like you and I decry this kind of nihilism that we see, the kind of relativism that we see. Some folks celebrate it, although I don't know if they genuinely do. I mean, that's another problem. But but then going back to one of your questions or the main thrust of your question, and then what I was just saying. Well, could modernism, could it have been saved and taken us another way? Well, I think people like Roger Scruton believe that. I think his Kantianism says that. Well, yes, I think we can. It went off the tracks with postmodernism.
Yeah.
And with a lot of the ideologies that come out of that, I think that's partly true. My Aristotelianism and Thomistic tendencies wants to see a return of something a little bit different. But again, I don't think that's incompatible with some modernism, like say Kant or whatnot. So, where did it go off the rails? I don't know. I will say this. I think definitively it went off the rails when thinking, philosophical thinking, went toward a went toward ideology.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
When it got
Hegelized.
when it got Hegelized, and more particularly um, when we started focusing on smaller problems, or when it became about when it turned into criticism as opposed to building something.
Okay.
That's where I think it lost the rails a little bit. And that was that. By the way, that was the thrust of the other question that I asked you, right? About the good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it went uh, toward looking at and pointing out and trying to remove certain kind of things, and injustices and whatnot. Not that those things should retain, no, but I think that the strong approach to that, whereby um, justice is only about removing um, uh, identified injustices,
hmm
then it turns into ideology.
Okay. So I have a
Yeah.
question. When you
Yeah.
say building something, you mean asserting a truth claim? Um,
Building
that
a
that
picture of our wider good.
so the other
Yeah.
option is, do you mean like building, like a system building, like an internally consistent system building, like
Both and,
Kant?
what I would kind of say almost both and.
Okay.
So what was your first? So you have the
So like
system,
yeah, so
and then the
a system building, or else the other option is kind of like a truth claim which is open to criticism. Because it seems to me as though a lot of the postmodern project almost can't be criticized
yeah.
if it's to be like yeah, like it seems to me as though you can't actually criticize this statement that man has no nature.
Right.
There's no such thing as human nature. You're almost out of battery, by the way.
Yeah.
And the reason you can't criticize that idea is because if you accept the claim to begin with, then anybody who's coming at you is just kind of already working within the wrong like power structure and wrong framework. Um, so the other option is something like Kant or uh, Kant or maybe Heidegger. Hegel seems to be like a like I do think that Hegel is ideological, but at the same time he does seem to be like properly building something.
Mm-hmm.
So even how would you respond to like a Hegelian approach where you it seems to me, although I have a friend who would disagree with this, that
Well, what is
it's
Hegel
properly
building though? Because Hegel, well, I mean, he may very well be right.
well,
I mean,
he's
philosophy of
building
right
the,
is a little bit like that, but he's also
he seems to be building like the movement, or maybe like describing a movement towards absolute knowing, towards like a point in time where we're actually able to talk about the object in itself.
yeah. But does he say it is potential that we have um, at any given moment in history the potential to reach that, or that it's going to be something that unfolds?
It's an unfolding, I think. Yeah.
So it's not dependent upon us.
Unless you're Marx,
Then
yes.
yeah, well, yeah, right, and that's what I mean. Unless you're Marx, right?
Yeah.
Marx, uses so. So that's, I mean, even Hegel to some degree then would be, and Hegel's a little bit of an oddball maybe in modernism. In some respect, he he's still an idealist, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but he differs somewhat from other Enlightenment or post-Enlightenment thinkers in that, to a certain degree, there's not a lot that we can do about our wider historical situation.
Unless you're Marx.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I was going to say, that he's a little bit that there's not much we can do, but even Kant, and that's an area where Kant and Hegel are somewhat similar, although in a very different way. Whereas Kant, obviously, look, we can only know we can only know phenomena, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can only know the phenomenal world, but we can't really get to the world in itself.
Mhm.
That's a more but Kant, I don't think, has this grand historical kind of view that Hegel does. But
No,
it's
he does
kind of
not.
very similar. And frankly, I don't. Gosh, I haven't touched that stuff in a long time, so I don't.
I'll be reading Hegel next year,
And
and
I
I just
can't-
finished Critique of Purism. So.
Yeah, but I don't even remember the question.
Oh, the question was where we went off course in.
Oh, right. Where do you think we
philosophical
went off
history.
course?
Oh, so it seems to me as though, and you're not going to like
You're
this
a little
answer.
bit more keen on this than
Yeah.
I am.
So we seem to have gone off course in one of two ways. One option is, as you said, moving us, kind of creating the subject-object division, which comes about with Descartes. The problem is, this is a possibility, and I'm still not sure about it. Is the subject-object division might be a necessary requirement for Cartesian geometry.
But what? So what? I mean, that's I think, and I don't mean that in a fussy or snarky
Well,
way.
the question.
But I mean, why should we in our moral, social, political world be at the whims of what can be proven in geometry? Isn't that scientism? Isn't that some kind of
Well, we'd be giving up a lot. Like I mean,
yeah.
that's we can give up a lot, but
Yeah.
If Descartes in
Yeah.
his geometry
And
is
aren't mathematical truths also very distinct from moral truths?
they could be, but I think
Well, I mean, fundamentally though, because that's
yeah,
that's
no,
where
they
I
are, but Descartes' geometry also might be getting at like an ontological truth, and that ontological truth could.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that this is a possibility. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I stand by this. I'm not. The other possibility, and this is something which I think we need to actually consider, is that we might not have actually gone wrong in an idea, insofar as the place where we went off track might not have been through some kind of intellectual project, but perhaps rather by we might have got off track in our virtue.
Yes, yeah.
And-
Now that I would
and-
totally agree with. And
Yeah.
I think it's, but I
Well,
think,
I'm not sure
Yeah.
where you'd be able to begin to say that this is the point in time where we're suddenly beginning to kind of excuse our own unvirtuous actions.
I think we can to some degree. I think that happens with,
The Protestant Reformation.
I think, partly the Protestant Reformation, and its crescendo. Well, no, I wouldn't even say. I think its crescendo is in certain kinds of postmodernism and maybe even
The French Revolution.
existentialism and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I would say its crescendo comes through post-Enlightenment 19th century moral thinking, in thin morality. And here is where, and this is a great conversation, and we might have to do a part 2 to this one because this
Well,
is
we're
very
almost
good.
out of battery, and
And I can get the plug. I can get the
Okay,
plug.
okay.
But here's where I think Jonathan Haidt, who the moral psychologist Jonathan Haidt, makes this point very well, right? Where the one form of moral thinking looks very strongly at just a few things like justice and fairness, and that's about it, right? And that's typically the progressivism more or less does that, right? And then you have more traditionalism or conservatism, which takes in with it a whole lot of other things. The thinness of certain brands of moral thinking that comes out of consequentialism, utilitarianism, and Kantianism, deontological ethics and whatnot. I think we call it thin for the simple fact that it is more abstract. It doesn't take account of the embedded persons that we engage in, right? So it's only universal insofar as it.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to I want to be half.
You're like what's that? Oh man, you're like the Bauhaus guy.
Bauhaus guy.
Yeah, I'll show you later.
Okay.
But the band and the art movement. But yeah, so when it goes into that direction, it gets very
Yeah.
abstracted, and I think that virtue doesn't have a place in that. And I think too, the people that are utilitarians and Kantians and whatnot, the main reason seems to me that they don't like virtue, just in a very simple way, without going into the heavy philosophy of it, is that it's just you can't really argue
Mhm.
about it, right?
Mhm.
It's something a part of your character.
I mean,
So,
I think that if we take the
right.
claim as true,
Shoot, hold on a minute. We're gonna do a part 2 to this one. We got to stop.
okay,
All right.
that's fine.